here I am on the second episode of Representing the Workplace, and I'm joined with the lovely Sarah Smith, who's currently a software developer. And we're going to be hearing a bit from her today, just a bit about her story, her work life, and a few other things. So without further ado, welcome, Sarah. Hello.
Well, hello to you as well. Sort of excited to get through this interview and see what we can do for other people who are tuning in.
That's beautiful. That's fantastic. Thank you. So, my first thing that I want to know is, can you just tell me a bit about you, and your journey to where you are at the moment?
Well, you can probably tell from my accent, I'm actually American.
Okay.
Moved over here about 20-ish years ago.
Okay.
Be with my wife. Got 3 kids. I started off as self-employed over here, doing sort of a generic computer repair business and Linux admin stuff.
Yeah.
Found that working for myself didn't really work for me. So started with my current employer, who I've been with for 13 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I started as just general tech support, and basically through proving my abilities, I moved up through the ranks from the generic, well, at the time, generic software guy,
Yeah.
to a developer, sysadmin, and senior software developer,
Okay.
which is where I'm sitting at now. And it was, it's been a good journey. I've been able to stick with my current employer through my transition.
Would you say that made the transition a bit easier for you, or ease some of your concerns around it?
Well, that really depends on the people that you're with.
Okay.
There are, I know quite a few trans people who have needed to leave their jobs in order to transition.
Okay.
Some because they want to go stealth, some because they know they will not be accepted.
That's worrying. And that's something that
Yeah.
does need to change, and we need to make sure that the company cultures surrounding them, or the companies that they're in, are better, so that they don't feel that they have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, mine handled it really well.
Okay.
And I mean, we're an old company in the construction industry,
Yeah.
so it was actually surprising just how well they handled it.
Okay. That's great.
Because it was one of those that sort of felt like an old boys club
Yeah.
um, until it was sort of time for them to start accepting the changes, and that went off pretty well.
Moving on to my next question, then. I know you said you're now a senior software developer in the company you're at the moment. So, what can you just tell me a bit about what that entails, and then what your average day looks like, please?
Well, I take some lead in directing the direction the software is going. I tackle some of the hard projects, the hard problems. I'll typically be the person who is chosen to handle them. A typical day for me is sort of get into work, sort of spend the first hour and a half either catching up with emails or preparing for a daily stand-up meeting. Because we're an agile software development group, so so the stand-up is sort of integral part of the way that we develop software. That will take between 10 minutes to half an hour, and there might be other meetings that get spawned off of that.
Yeah.
And then it's knuckling down and getting to either development work or helping out other developers or providing information,
Okay.
finding new things, researching.
Yeah.
So just whatever the task at hand needs. Like if I don't know something,
Yeah.
I'm given the time that I need to find it out and discover and learn. So that's so I'm not just sitting there with my head down coding. I'm actually working on building my skills.
Oh, that's brilliant. And so can you just tell us a bit more about your skills? So like in terms of software development, like what language do you use now? Like which ones have you used previously, etc.
Well, I can sort of run through the ones that I used almost chronologically.
Okay.
When I first started, I was using PHP and Perl for supporting the projects that I was doing. There was some VBA stuff because we had a Microsoft Access database that needed migrating into MySQL.
Mm-hmm.
So we still kept the Access front end because that's what people were familiar with, but moved back end onto a proper database server. So that was done using that mix of PHP and Perl. There were other reporting things that were done in PHP. Then when I moved on to the software development, that was all written in ANSI C with the Win32 API. So quite old stuff. There was a lot of learning some quite low level programming.
Okay.
Then after that, we started a new software project that was done in C++ with a few C# helpers.
So what do you use C++ to do? Like, just so the people watching this know or have an idea what they can do with certain languages. Like, do you use it to develop websites? Is it back-end technology? Is it app-based technology? What sort of thing are you doing?
This is desktop application, specifically structural engineering. So it's very heavy on the mathematics.
Okay.
We work alongside structural engineers who help us with getting the formulas right, cross-checking the work so that we can prove that the mathematics that we're doing in the software actually fit the formulas that they've provided.
Okay.
And also that they follow the European building standards.
Okay. So would you say somebody looking to pick up C++ should also be quite handy at maths, or is it something that you can pick up along the way, or is it just specific to your industry? Would you say the mathematics are?
The mathematics at the level that we're doing them, they're quite industry specific,
Okay.
but I think in order to do sort of any programming, you should have a decently strong mathematics background.
Okay.
I would probably say that the college level mathematics without specialization is probably enough for
Yeah.
most people.
Okay.
It's only
Perfect.
it's only if you get into specialization that
Yeah.
I think you need to build a strong mathematics fundamental.
Okay. Fine. All right. Perfect. And I know you said you've been with your current company for about 13 years. How much of that has been as a software developer?
A good 10 years of it.
Okay, that's brilliant. Excellent. And what's been your favorite thing about being a software developer over the last 10 years?
It's I think it's actually been the challenges that I've been presented with.
Okay.
When it came around to writing the new software, there were a lot of challenges, and we were starting from sort of a blank slate,
Yeah.
and we could decide how we wanted to do things instead of needing to work within the framework provided by the legacy program.
Okay.
Um, so being able to come at things from a completely blank slate
Yeah.
and basically solving the problems,
Okay.
that's been the bit that I like the most about software development.
Yeah.
It's not so much the coding as it is the thinking.
Okay. That's great. And it's great that you bring that up because I think a lot of people think that when you do get into software development, it is just coding, 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 coding. There's not really much room for creativity, thought, or anything like that. So it's really good to hear you say that that's not the case in some circumstances. Um, Another question then is being a software developer what you thought you'd be doing 10 years ago?
Um, it's actually what I known I was going to be doing since I was about 8 years old.
Oh, that's brilliant. What
Um,
inspired you to do that?
um, oh, what was it? Basically, I was still in sort of elementary school.
Yeah,
One one of the computers went on the blink, and it was one of those programs where people would sit and type it in line by line,
yeah,
and they couldn't figure out what was going wrong.
uh-huh,
And I mean, I wasn't able to fix it because I just didn't know what was going on, but I was absolutely fascinated by the process and how these lines of code
yeah,
can make this machine do these interesting things.
okay, brilliant. And then was from that age, did you find yourself working towards it, or was it something you thought of at 8 and then picked up a bit later?
It was definitely something that I thought about then, but um, wasn't really in a position to pick up until quite a bit later.
Okay, that's fine. And then when did you start looking at it again? Once you entered this employment, or was there like degrees in college before that?
Well, I had gone to college in the States to
Yeah,
learn sort of the software development side of things.
yeah, okay,
When I came over here, uh, even though a fair amount of the work that I did self-employed was sort of fixing people's computers,
yeah,
there was still times where I had to be in doing the PHP programming
yeah,
for sort of for websites and getting stuff up and running.
okay,
So even before I landed in this gig, I was doing software development as part of my sort of everyday.
Okay, cool. And then, so moving on now. Thanks for telling us about your career. And I hope people can find inspiration from what you said so far. Um, and see that it is something that is achievable. What I'd like to move on to next is specifically what goes on within the workplace. So my first question to you is, what/who do you feel you represent in the workplace?
Well, under the LGBT umbrella, I
Yeah.
get two of the letters because
Okay.
I am transgender and I am also lesbian.
Okay.
So when it comes to who is represented by me, it's sort of both of those groups.
Okay.
There are other people in my division who are gay,
Yeah.
and as far as I'm aware, I'm the only trans person in my division.
Okay.
There
Okay.
might be other people who are and have already gone stealth, but I'm the only openly trans
Okay.
person.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. And through being a transgender person or a lesbian, are there any stereotypes that you feel you have to dispel or disprove while you're at work?
Um, well, to be fair, I am one of the transgender stereotypes.
Okay.
I am a trans woman in tech, and that is like one of the stereotypes out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's this whole meme about programmer socks, and it's the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, so so I sort of am living that side of the stereotype.
Okay.
Um, I think there's also this stereotype that a trans woman has to be hyper feminine
Yeah.
to blend or try to prove that she's a woman.
Yeah.
Um, and while I am quite feminine leaning, I don't adhere to it strictly.
Okay.
So there's the bit about just making sure everyone respects me. And as far as my sexuality is concerned, that really doesn't play a part in the workplace.
That's good.
It really doesn't make that much of a difference. Like when we have work events,
Yeah.
my wife comes with me, and it's no different than if I was bringing a husband along.
Oh, that's brilliant. That must be really good. And then another thing then, are there any specific hurdles that you'd like to highlight that you've had to overcome during your career?
Um, I think that some of the biggest hurdles aren't actually connected to my LGBT status.
Okay.
Uh, Most of them have to do with, most of them are actually connected to my mental illnesses, which are depression and anxiety.
Okay.
And those have actually proven to be more of a challenge to work through
Yeah.
than uh, my queer identity.
Okay. And if are you open to or not open to? Can you tell us a bit more, only if you're comfortable to, sorry, about how anxiety and depression can affect your career?
Yeah, I'm one of those people who's trying to reduce the mental health stigma
Okay.
through living, and
Yeah.
hopefully this will help there as well.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, it just means that I sometimes need a little bit more either allowance for losing motivation
Yeah.
or getting off track.
Okay.
Um, Basically, having that accountability to other people has helped me with sort of the staying on task. Um, the way that my anxiety presents isn't typically triggered by anything that happens directly at work.
Yeah.
I can be, because of the nature of the work, if my anxiety is bad, I can shut the world out and
Okay.
just focus on the task at hand. Just do the programming and block everything else out
Yeah.
until the waves of anxiety have passed. Then
Okay.
and then I'm just getting on with things. Uh, the the depression, it also sort of impacts the motivation and the drive that I have.
Okay.
So um, I can be quite subdued,
Yeah.
and sometimes even though I really enjoy something, it doesn't seem like it because the outside of me looks dispassionate.
Okay.
So there sometimes it's the interpersonal stuff. Like sometimes I seem like I'm not approachable,
Yeah.
or like or if something's gone wrong with the software, they don't want to come and bother me
Yeah.
because I feel standoffish.
Yeah.
So that's how those have impacted.
Okay. Thank you
Uh,
so much for sharing those, Sarah. I know they're definitely very personal to you. And so it's very brave of you to come on here and share that. So yeah, I really appreciate it. And I hope anyone who does see it can really take inspiration from you. So yeah, thanks again for that. I'd like to ask then, is there any advice that you'd give to somebody either from the LGBT community or somebody with mental health issues like anxiety and depression? Is there any advice that you'd give them to help them follow a career path in software development?
well, my main advice really is don't be afraid.
Okay.
Um, and I know it's said quite often, but it does get better.
Okay.
The everything that all the fear, all the being scared of what might happen,
Yeah.
that all gets better, and the vast majority of people are very accepting.
Yeah.
You do wind up the the jerks that aren't, but you can't let them get you down. They're just projecting their own sad life onto you.
100%.
So yeah, you can't let don't let the bastards get you down. So yeah, basically that's my advice really.
Okay.
I
That's
know
brilliant.
I know it's hard for a lot of people in my position to find the inner strength for that,
Yeah.
but it is in there.
Okay. Brilliant. Thanks again. I hope that positivity lands where it needs to, and whoever needs to hear it does. Because yeah, again, that's really it's great that you can have such a positive attitude, and I hope it rubs off on others. What another thing then is what do you think what do you think the fundamental parts of an inclusive culture in a workplace are?
Well, I think that some of the things that are important are for things like uh, gay issues and trans issues. I think that some of the best things is um, for there to be sort of education
Yeah,
and um, for the things like LGBT issues to be openly discussed,
yeah,
but with a view towards acceptance. So things like the derogatory jokes,
yeah,
so that bad banter
yeah,
that is built off of treading on other people,
yeah.
that needs to be stamped out. And I mean, there's plenty of good um, jokes out there and good banter that are related to that are related to sort of queer issues.
Yeah,
Uh, and sometimes those of us who are in the community are best poised to make those jokes.
yeah,
And I think we shouldn't be afraid to.
yeah.
Um,
Owning it.
now, there is one thing that my employer did with my transition that I thought was absolutely brilliant.
Okay.
That um, I've talked about it with other people before, and I think it's been implemented in other workplaces.
Yeah.
Um, it just worked really well for me.
Okay.
Some places will have a swear jar where you
Yeah.
stick in a pound or spit or whatever loose change you've got if you swear.
Yeah.
Instead of swear jar, they put up a Sarah jar. So if anyone got my name or my pronouns wrong,
Yeah.
they put some into the Sarah jar. And
Brilliant.
it took about 3 months for everyone to adapt.
Yeah.
By which time I had about 30 quid that went to the Mermaids.
That's great. And do you feel that everyone was making a conscious effort to adapt, and this helped accelerate the adapting?
Yeah, I mean, the way that I came out was because we're sort of manufacturing construction industry, we
Yeah.
have a 2 week shutdown period at Christmas.
Yeah.
So I basically sent a division-wide email out the day that we were going to be breaking up,
Yeah.
telling everyone that, look, when I come back, you won't be referring to me as my dead name. You'll be calling me Sarah from now on. I'll be using female pronouns and presenting as
Yeah.
female.
Hmm.
And people didn't wait until we got back from vacation to start using my name and pronouns.
That's great.
Um, by the end of the day, my clocking card and my employee records had
Hmm.
all been updated.
That's brilliant.
Um, and my employee records aren't even held in my division, they're held in the head office.
Yeah.
So stuff was passed along to head office. So yeah, which I was going to do after we got back from
Yeah.
vacation, um, but no, that was all handled for me.
That's great. That is great.
So
It's good to hear. And then another thing about inclusivity, then, I know you've been in the same company for the last 13 years, but I'm sure you may have seen or heard about recruitment and hiring processes. Is there anything you feel employers can do to make hiring processes more inclusive?
um, I think when it comes to the hiring process, is they need to become aware of their own biases.
Okay.
And because I think that um, inclusivity for the sake of being inclusive does more damage than good.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Well, if you're trying to be inclusive,
Yeah.
then you're going to miss out on good people.
Yeah.
Like if you're passing over like a straight guy who is maybe 70% of what you need
Yeah.
for, or if he's, no, let's swap that around. The straight white guy is like 90% of what you need for the job,
Yeah.
but then you've got someone who is quite obviously queer coming in,
Yeah.
but is only about 60% of what you need,
Yeah.
and then you give the job to the queer person because they are queer.
Yeah.
That does them a disservice, and it does the company a disservice.
Okay. Yeah. I
But
hear where you're coming from.
but if they're reversed,
Yeah.
then the hiring manager might pick the cis white guy who isn't a good fit
Yeah.
because of the hiring people's unacknowledged biases. So I think that the process of hiring,
Yeah.
as people are going through it, they need to question, why are they passing over this person?
Yeah.
Does it have anything to do with their presentation? Does it have, or is it just based on their skills?
Yeah. Okay.
And that's sort of where I'm sitting, right, at least for right now. I might
Okay.
change that view later in my life, but where I'm sitting at right now
Yeah.
is the right person for the job.
Yeah.
You need to set aside all of your biases and all of your prejudices to get there. And we all need to acknowledge the prejudices that we have in us.
Yeah. 100%. I
So
agree.
so that's what the hiring managers and human resources, that's what they need to work on, is conscious and unconscious bias.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Thank you for sharing that. And then lastly then, we made it to the final question, Sarah. Is there any companies or organizations that you'd like to shout out that are doing great work in either the LGBT community or around and mental health, with particular reference to anxiety and depression?
Well, really the only one that I want to give the shout out to is to Mermaids, because
Okay.
they are helping the trans youth.
Yeah.
And now I'm a late transitioner.
Okay.
I didn't start my transition until I was 35.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of things that kept me from acknowledging it earlier in my life.
Okay.
Um, there is no right time to transition. This that people have always known is another myth
Yeah.
out there.
Okay.
But young people especially need more support,
Okay.
because even today parents are unaccepting,
Yeah.
and the their kids need the safety net,
Okay.
and place people like Mermaids can help
Yeah.
provide some of that.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm okay. It's the it really is the youth, the kids that that I really want to see get more support.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Yeah. That's Yeah, that's part of the reason why I set up Diverse Talent Search is to inspire youth, and see and give them the opportunity to see that they can be what they want to be,
Hmm.
regardless of what they look like, believe in, their gender, anything, disabilities, whatever. So yeah, Mermaids sound like an amazing organization. And yeah, I'll definitely give them a shout out when I post this.
Yeah, I think one of the major things that I want your audience to take away from
Yeah,
this is that being trans, being gay, being queer, it's normal, it's acceptable,
yeah,
it's nothing to be afraid of.
okay.
Like it may be the minority of people,
Hmm.
but even in that minority, it's still normal.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we just hit the last question. So I'd like to say thank you so much, Sarah. You've been amazing. Thank you so much for opening up as much as you did, but I really appreciate it.
You know, this was nice. Quite enjoyed it.